I'm never going to hear the end of this. Hello, everybody. This doesn't count as me being 60 seconds late. Before anybody even tries to accuse me of that, I already see it happening in the comments. This doesn't count. I went to go bring the tab up for StreamYard, and I accidentally clicked the X instead of the tab, and then I panicked. And I've been frantically typing ever since then. But we got there, barely late. Realistically, I don't even think anybody's counting it. So that's fine. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all having a fantastic start to your morning. I know I absolutely am. Still not multi-streaming yet, but the TikTok stream is now also happening through my laptop at the same time as the YouTube and Facebook stream, just through different entities. We're one step closer. We're one step closer. And of course, with that comes an extra step in the setup that I did not account for in my morning routine. So here we are. So, good morning, everybody. Lots to get into with you here today over the course of the next 2 hours. And I'm looking forward to doing it with all you, Jarmani and Phil and Oshkosh, just relentless in the chat today. So much that I want to jump into. Good morning, Lorelai. Good morning, everybody on TikTok. We've got a whole bunch of people trickling in here today. Plenty, obviously, in the world of American politics that I would like to jump into with you guys. Hell, I mean, between the comments that the ceasefire's over, the Wisconsin Supreme Court stepping up to do some good things in this state, and I have some rationale as to why I think what they did was in fact good. And at 10 o'clock, if you didn't see my little hype up video, we are going to be joined by Chris Armstrong, who is running in the 7th Congressional District to replace Tom Tiffany, who obviously had to vacate his seat in the House in order to be able to run for governor poorly. And so he will be joining us at 10 a.m. today on the YouTube stream as well as the Facebook Live as well. So just a heads up for those of you, if you are unable to stick around for the entire conversation, it will be available on my YouTube page almost immediately after the show wraps up. So if you can't catch it live, I'd highly recommend it. Again, no incumbent in that seat, so it really is up for grabs for anyone that wants it. Main progressive saying, I see Ben actually got some new followers. We're getting there. We're getting there. And shout out to the people that were helping me out yesterday. I couldn't shut up about it. I'll do it one more time just for the people that are tuning in here. But you guys want to see what active censorship on social media looks like? Hold on, let me share my screen with you guys really quickly, because all of my friends here on my TikTok chat, they always mock me because I'll be talking about my shadow ban and the fact that nobody can handle what I'm saying, and they always sarcastically be like, "Oh, have you been shadow banned? You haven't talked about it before." Look at what happens. Like, this is real. These are real metrics here. I was sharing these last night, and I want to share it with you guys here today as well, and then we'll get into the news of the day. But okay, so I just throw this up there. Okay, look at this. And for those of you that don't know what you're looking at, let me get my TikTok chat out of the way here. These are my views on TikTok, and as you can see, I was pretty good at it for a very long time. And then one day after I made a post about Jared and Ivanka buying an island in the Caribbean, complete flatline over here. So nobody's been seeing my stuff for a month and a half every time I post on TikTok. So this is what I've been going through while also having my radio show taken away from me. But we're going to get there. We're going to get there one day at a time. Jeremy, I said it's Chris Armstrong of the 7th District. Good morning, Paul. And OG Michelle says, good morning, all. Looking forward to the show while getting ready to talk at tonight's safety and licensing meeting in Appleton about the truancy ordinance. Good times. Well, you know me, Michelle. I am very much in favor of the same things you are in regards to truancy. I don't believe we should be criminalizing the act. Obviously, you should be going to school, but there has to be reasonable ways to do this kind of stuff here. And good morning, good morning. Oh, I'm getting inundated with messages right now. This is nice. This is a nice way to start the show. I'm not intentionally ignoring anybody. I just you guys all say hello to each other because I can't focus on what's going on there. So, interview at 10, but plenty to talk about over the course of the next hour before we get there. And I want to start with the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Um, for those of you that didn't see my post last night, and allow me to bring it up here. Um, the Wisconsin Supreme Court has, in fact, voted the way anybody with common sense would expect them to vote, agreeing not to release our data, our voting records to a essentially right-wing activist who won't shut the hell up about the fact that the 2020 election was, I can't say it the right way because the last time I talked about election frogs, I'll call it, even in the appropriate way, my account got flagged for spreading misinformation. So just know that 2020 was on the up and up. Anybody who's acting like it wasn't just isn't paying attention to data. And of course, they don't notice any inconsistencies with the 2024 election. They only notice it with the 2020 election. But so it is being reported. The Wisconsin Supreme Court refuses to release voter records sought by conservative activists, as per reporting from WBAY TV. The Wisconsin Supreme Court on Tuesday rejected an attempt by conservative activists to obtain guardianship records in an effort to find ineligible voters in the presidential battleground state. The case has been winding its way through the courts for years. It ended up failing 5-2. Obviously, supermajority in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So nobody thought that this was going to pass. And of course, if you guys didn't see the post I made, and I did end up cracking this morning because I had to look, but I posted that article this morning and I said, I'm not reading the comments. I don't want to read the comments, but I think you should read the comments and I think you'll have a fun time with it. And the reason why I thought so is because, of course, when I checked this morning, there was an absolute meltdown in the comments surrounding the MAGAs and the fact that, oh, if you got nothing to hide, you shouldn't be afraid to show what's going on there. Why am I so obsessed with politics? It's my fucking job, Insider Arizona. Thanks for being here. So you may wonder why this actually matters in the grander scheme of things, because maybe MAGA has a point. I'm just a simple Wisconsin-based talk show host, but maybe I just don't understand why it's important for us to get to the bottom of this voter fraud. Maybe if we really looked at the voter rules more closely, maybe I would have a better idea of why MAGA feels the way they do. Well, let me explain to you why this is an issue. For the record, I do not have a Truth Social account because I respect my brain cells too much. But Truth Social, if you're unfamiliar, is where Donald Trump posts all of his screaming into the sun, scathing nonsense for his cultists to num 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 eat right up there every single day that he posts anything. I want to show you how Donald Trump is talking on there as of July 5th. So I'm a bit behind the 8 ball on this one. But when people say they don't want Donald Trump, ICE, and his government having access to their voter records, and people say why, I think I have an answer. I am asking our great Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, to immediately investigate whether ICE detention centers can also be used for communists, all in caps. We have the space, beautiful facilities, and many dangerous communists already identified, mostly Democratic politicians. Hate to break it to you, Democrats are Reaganists, you abject moron. Radical organizers and people demanding affordable child care. Minnesota was a very successful test. We must protect America before these lunatics give everyone. Okay, you know what? I'm beginning to think, did I fall for AI right there? Timeout. There's no way he actually said this. I should have verified this one. Does anyone know? Did he actually say this? I don't want to report fake news, but like, once I got to that last sentence, I was like, you know what? I may have fallen for AI on this one. But it doesn't change the facts, whether or not this statement is true or not. NSPM7 is still real. I don't need the quote to prove my point. He is willing to crack down on his political enemies. I hate to break it to you, MAGA, but the reason why Donald Trump lost in 2020 is he is a trash ass president. He's going to lose the House in 2026 because he's a trash ass president. And unfortunately, because of some unfortunate happenings in some Senate races, they might maintain access to the Senate. But the fact that it's even going to be close is because he's a trash ass president. That's why he lost. And for the people that are struggling to understand that he's a trash ass president, it might feel like fraud had to take place for us to get to this inevitable outcome. But no, it's the fact that he doesn't have any ideas. Like, realistically, other than making it hard to vote, what is the Trump administration? What do they have to campaign on? We cut taxes for the rich. We made healthcare more expensive. We created a mass Virgin Army, unaliving Americans in the street without any investigation or due process whatsoever. What do they have to run on? They're gonna take a beating in November, and the same morons saying that 2020 was rigged are going to say the same thing about 2026 with no evidence other than the fact that their dad president lost, and Papa can't lose, according to the MAGAs. So when an activist shows up trying to get access to voter rolls to see who voted against Donald Trump, while Donald Trump is actively calling center-right Democrats communists, let alone actual leftists. Thank you for the follow. It's not complicated to see why anybody with 4 brain cells to rub together would not want to see their names and who they voted for be made accessible to this Trump administration when they are actively vilifying anybody that votes against the dad president. So kudos to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. They did the right thing. And I love your MAGA tears, conservatives. They're delicious. I can't wait to vote in every county in November. But the meltdowns need to stop. Don't you already feel it? Like, I already said to a friend of mine, I'm considering, now that I have a little bit of excess freedom and I can kind of do the show when and how I want, I may end up volunteer. I might work the polls in November, because why the hell not? Just get a firsthand experience about what's going on there, because I think it's better than sitting here bitching about the dummies that are going to complain about it. That's for sure. Tissa says, what's your thoughts on Trump, though? I don't think he's a very good president. And this is coming from somebody, I don't know if you're just finding the show, Tisha, but I gave MAGA the benefit of the doubt because I thought the Biden economy sucked. I thought it left a lot to be desired. I thought that MAGA had valid complaints. And when a lot of people were calling them sexist, racist, and transphobic, I was like, well, they do have some good points about the economy. The economy has only gotten worse, and they're all pretending like Donald Trump wins at every move he makes. So I think it might be the transphobia, the sexism, and the racism. And this is coming from somebody that was willing to give the benefit of the doubt. I love AP Endeavors says, morning, everyone. Excited for this morning show to help distract from the tedium that is recoloring pixels at work. I feel that. Okay, the message is fake. Okay, good. Yeah, it all felt so. That's what's crazy, is that the guy's such a crackpot that you're just like, oh, now he's actively saying out loud he wants to consider using the detention centers for communists. Keep in mind, they called Kamala Harris Communist Kamala. Kamala Harris, who was going to enact Reagan-era tax rates, who said we need the strongest military ever, who had no real economic agenda, was communist. It's almost like they don't know what the word means or something. It's crazy. Ken says, I'm an election worker and they are secure. Oh, I know they're secure, bud. I just know with every fiber of my being that any Trump supporter is going to say the election is rigged when Tom Tiffany takes an ass beating, when they lose like 30 seats in the House. And this is with a Democratic Party that nobody can stand. You know what I mean? This is with a Democratic Party that is not popular, that does not have your best interest at heart, that realistically is probably going to intend to run on how much Trump sucks rather than how good they can be. And they're still going to beat the crap out of the MAGA movement come November. And they're still going to tell you that it happened with because of election fraud and not because of the obvious failings of this administration that are obvious to anybody who's seriously talking about politics. Tissa says, I don't like Trump, but the Democrats are so unlikable. Preaching to the choir, all right? You're preaching to the choir. I'm right there with you. And like for the record, because I see Maine progressives say that Republicans don't watch any real news. I just want to be clear to kind of piggyback off of what Tissa was saying there. There really isn't real news in America. There's better and worse news. The best way I can describe it is let's say you woke up tomorrow morning and the sky were purple because of something Trump did. The Fox News would wake up the next day and tell all their listeners the sky was always purple. The fact that the liberals are trying to convince you it was a different color just shows you that they have Trump derangement syndrome and can't be taken seriously. Then a Democrat would take over, and a year and a half into the administration, the sky would still be purple. And liberal media would be like, yeah, the sky's still purple, but what do you expect the Democrats to do? You didn't give them an 80-seat majority in the Senate. So, like, realistically, we're just going to have to deal with the purple sky until you guys show up and vote blue a little bit harder. And that's basically what news is in this country. What knocked me off the course was the way they covered Gaza. As soon as I saw the way that they were talking about the conflict versus what I was seeing prior to social media being bought out by a bunch of jags, well, bigger jags than who originally owned it, I should say. That's what knocked me off the course forever. I used to be gung-ho. Fox News is obviously worse than all of it. And then after October 2023, I'm like, oh, so we actually do not have a news apparatus. And what's funny is there's probably a lot of people that are into this show that are like, Ben, it took you that long to realize it. And like, yes, it did. It felt more realistic because it was telling me stuff that I was more inclined to believe, right? It's why Outside the Box is about breaking through that echo chamber. What sucks is that MAGA thinks the only echo chamber is liberal news. They don't have the cognitive capacity to recognize that they are stuck in an echo chamber. They bitch about the liberal echo chamber and then absolutely just espouse nonsense talking points anytime. Look at my comments underneath my Supreme Court post on Facebook. Caller Ben is in there. Go look at him rationalizing the voter fraud, as they like to call it. Don't ban me, TikTok. I'm saying it's fake. Yeah, Maine Progressive says they think the 1,000 polls showing this approval rating are fake. Well, I mean, that kind of ties into another story. There's machinations, rumors saying that Graham Plattner's going to be dropping out later on today. I said if he didn't drop out by Ben After Dark last night that he wasn't going to drop out. And he didn't. But it seems as though the writing on the wall is later on today he's going to be dropping out, which is good news. Here's what's interesting about it. There are reports that he is staying in as long as he is in order to leverage his position, saying, I swear to God, I'll stay in the race unless you guys put somebody in who is reflective of the way that I was running. And it's so funny to watch the DNC people react the way they are to Graham Plattner essentially saying, I'm going to pull a DNC on the DNC. Because I'll be real with you. I was a big Plattner guy. I think he sucks now. I believe the women in this scenario. I read the reporting. I think the evidence is corroborated. I talked about it at length yesterday as well as 2 nights ago on Ben After Dark. Go back and listen to my archived episodes on Substack and YouTube, or the Tube of You, if you haven't already, if you want my full thoughts on the matter there. But I think it's pretty cut and dry. And despite the fact that I do think he has very good politics, I think it's about time for him to drop out. The DNC is saying, who is he to tell us who we're going to put in there? Meanwhile, this is the same political party that forced Kamala Harris on us, despite the fact that she basically pulled 0% in 2020 when she had competition in a primary. Oh yeah, there's like 7 reports at this time, Jarmani. Plattner is staying in to influence the race, but here's the deal. And I know you were in the live last night, so you already heard me kind of workshopping this idea. If the Democrats are serious about winning, that is their play. Their play is put somebody in there like Graham Plattner, minus all the obvious baggage. And I'm here to tell you right now, hold on, wait, is there something wrong? I'm here to tell you right now that if they actually care about beating Susan Collins, that's what they will do. Because full disclosure, and you can call me whatever names you want, the reason why the Democratic establishment was trying to take down Graham Plattner from the beginning, because again, these stories are coming from inside the House. This isn't Republican operatives. This is Democrats trying to sink their own person while out of the other side of their mouth they're telling you Donald Trump's an authoritarian and we have to pull out all the stops to beat him. But you better be in favor of supporting never-ending weapons to our allies in the Middle East. Because if you're not in favor of sending those weapons to the allies in the Middle East, well, then we're going to have a bigger problem. And that's what Graham Plattner represents. Graham Plattner represents a progressive politics that stands up against corporate interests rather than coalescing to them. If the Democrats actually mean what they mean about trying to take down Donald Trump, they should be putting someone in who talks exactly like Plattner, but doesn't have the baggage. I highly doubt they're going to put Janet Mills in. And unfortunately, I didn't have the time to get into the 6 proposed candidates that people are saying would be able to replace Graham Plattner. But a bigger question to ask then would be, if there are 6 candidates that the Democratic establishment believes would be viable selections to put in there, then why the hell was Janet Mills the only person running? Why was Chuck Schumer preventing anybody else from running in the election in order to push forward a 78-year-old centrist who nobody was in favor of and lost by like 50 or 60 points in the primaries? What was the logic, and why are we supposed to believe that any of these other people are viable options when you yourselves decided that they were not even worth allowing to run, much like you decided nobody was allowed to run during the 2020 or 2024 election? And then to have the audacity to say, who is Graham Plattner to tell us who we're going to put at the top of the ticket? I'll tell you what, the dude shouldn't be trusted around women, but I trust his politics more than anything coming out of mainline Democrats in 2026. And the polling reflects that. I am not in the minority of that statement. And so Susan Collins is a beatable candidate. She votes with Trump 94% of the time, and Trump's economy sucks. Did you guys see the post I made 2 days ago? Every single candidate in the Wisconsin gubernatorial race is pulling ahead of Tom Tiffany. Every single candidate, according to polls in July of 2026, can beat Tom Tiffany because the MAGA movement does not have anything to actually brag about or run on. So, like, Susan Collins is absolutely beatable. They keep trying to convince you she's a cockroach. She's so difficult to be able to beat. I don't know how we're going to take her down. She's absolutely beatable. It's the fact that Democrats keep running centrists that don't inspire their own base to show up, show out, and vote. It's not particularly difficult. Uh, Let me pull my Facebook comments up here just because I don't want to. I need to get better at checking these. All right, we just got a couple of interactions, but no comments through here. That's absolutely fine. Thank you for joining us on this live as well here. 15 of you on there. It's a nice number to see. Let's keep that rolling up. And so I hope he stays in, and I hope he has a say in who gets to be his replacement. And again, hopefully for tomorrow. Oh, FB, right. Thank you, Violet. Thank you for being here. Noticed you blew us off last night. Don't worry, didn't take it personally. Um, um, Let me see here. I did grab a screenshot. So there's 6 viable replacements, and but I just got wrapped up in other stuff. You know, occasionally I do just do stuff for myself sometimes. I'm realizing I have to do that. We got Troy Jackson, who I believe is a member of the DSA. I believe Ali told me that when I was doing the show last night. Janet Mills, Boo, Hannah Pingree, Nariv Shah, Dan Kleben, and Shenna Bellows. All apparently are viable options to replace Graham Plattner now that he's in all likelihood going to announce his departure from the race in the near future. I'd like to be able to give an informed opinion on all of them here, but we may end up finding out later today which one of them is going to be pushed up to the front of the line here in moments. And I hope Plattner gets to put his finger on the pulse and push a progressive candidate to the top because without the baggage, Plattner would have beat the shit out of Susan Collins. And if that's what you actually care about, if what you actually care about is neutering the Trump administration, is taking back the War Powers Act, taking away the tariffs, cracking down. Granted, Trump will veto any kind of positive legislation, but as I always say, get the majorities, propose the legislation, make him veto it. Make him say no to affordable housing, affordable health care, taxing wealthy people a reasonable rate, because the only thing that's happened since the 4th bout of trickle-down economics in my lifetime is more wealth consolidation and a crap ton of layoffs. So, let's see if they let him put his finger on the pulse, but do not allow the blue MAGA talking heads to convince you that that Graham Blattner vocalizing his opinions and using the leverage that he has right now to make sure that a good anti our allies in the Middle East candidate, pro Medicare for all candidate is put on the top of the ticket, and not somebody that's going to fight hard against Donald Trump, somebody that actually has ideas and is intending to do things. That's what we need to see out of that state. That's what we need to see out of Wisconsin. That's what we need to see out of a lot of states going forward. Leftist candidates aren't winning by accident. What are you talking about, KG, with Bashir? I didn't see him talk. CKK says, I still think Plattner should stay in just to help burn the system down. Yeah. I'd like to beat Collins, and I don't think, hell, if he stayed in and there were no other challengers, he might, like, in 2026, I don't know. Lorelai says, since men are 90% more likely to commit crimes, maybe a woman candidate would be a safe main bet. I don't know, Lorelai. I mean, Janet Mills sucked pretty bad and she was a woman. It's almost like identity doesn't matter and it's more about the policy and the person or something. Waka waka. But oh, Bashir's demanding a conversation with McConnell. I haven't seen any of that. Um I'll be honest, I don't have any comment on that, other than, Bashir seems like an all right guy. But I see people in my TikTok chat are having a lot of fun with the idea that I was talking about neutering politicians. You guys, sometimes I just have to put the chat over to the side, otherwise I'm not going to get anywhere in this show today. But I mean, it's going to be an interesting way that things end up playing out, and I don't know. I hope they take it seriously. I hope the Dems realize they're at like a 17% approval rating and that their centrist attitudes are not enough to appeal to a mainline audience, that it can win elections, but it wins elections like 50% of the time, which I should get an actual tinfoil hat now that there's a video element to this. But put the tinfoil hat on. I believe that's intentional. I believe they never want to win more than half the time so that they're never actually required to do anything. Um, what's this say? Echeverry says, Ben, I could solve Wisconsin's problems in 3 to 4 years tops. I believe that. I don't think there's a lot of real problems here. I believe a lot of problems in this nation actually are brought about. It's like my career, self-made. A lot of our problems are self-made. Um, and if you had people serious about it, I mean, I'll be real with you, dude. The reason why, and I apologize, I need to figure out the best way to set this dual screen up on my Mac. Maybe if I do it like this, does that work? Um, No, son of a gun. I have to figure out a better way to do this at another time because if any of you are asking to be on the show, I might have to go through the phone for a little while longer yet. I was just excited that I found this new way to do things. But in any event, the longer you do this job, the more you realize um, that the answers to the problems that we are facing are obvious and the people in power know how to fix it and they're actively choosing not to do it. And that's actually the most depressing thing of all. So I don't disagree with you at all. I believe that if most normal people won an election, um, they would try to enact the right things. I think our systems are designed so that normal people can't get to the top. Thank you for all the gifts, Violated Elf. I always appreciate you throwing those my way. It always means a lot. And thank you to everybody throwing me gifts and to everybody who has been donating to me on my Venmo. The community this show has been incredibly helpful, and all of you throwing me between 10 and 20 bucks, it all adds up and I appreciate you for it. Some of you guys are throwing me stupid amounts of money, which I appreciate, and please never feel obligated to do that, but the fact that you're willing to do so is incredibly meaningful to me in ways that I often say. I'm a guy, I'm a wordsmith. I'm a guy that works in words and I never shut up. And I don't know what to say that so many of you people kind of believe in me like that. And anybody who's interested in helping out, I do have a link tree available in my Tube of You bio, as well as thank you for the follow, Doug, as well as my Book of Faces bio. You can click that there, and the Venmo's right up there, as well as all of my other socials, including the Minocqua Brewing Company Substack, Stack of Subs, um, that was gracious enough to carry the show as well and kind of help me along in this interim period. Um, Isabel says, and I know you're living in Maine, so you're frustrated right now. Says our elections don't matter and they will choose our candidate. Well, I mean, I'll be real. I feel you, Jen, and obviously we've lived through it on the national scene. But I'm telling you right now, maybe I'll have egg on my face in a month, but I feel like um, Francesca Hong can come out of Wisconsin, and if she does, you can tell in the lead up there really isn't a lot of scandals that you can tie to her. Actually, I saw a story yesterday they're trying to run with where she called 911 on a Palestinian protester, um, trying to alienate her from the leftists that support her. And she was like, yeah, I went outside and I saw a blue and white flag of our allies in the Middle East covered in, I don't know if I can say blood. I'm just going to say it, covered in blood. And I thought something terrible happened. So I called 911. And then I found out that it was like kind of a metaphor for the ongoing Big G in Gaza. And then she apologized to the DSA as well as the people that she called on. So if your biggest scandal is calling 911 to report anti-Semitism, I I don't think, Jen, to your point, that you're going to see the Democratic establishment trying to do that. You already see a lot of the people in Wisconsin politics say, whichever candidate comes out, I'm supporting them. And you can bet your sweet ass if you don't support whichever candidate comes out, I'll be calling you out, because I'll tell you right now that I would probably be voting for any candidate, barring any kind of shitbaggery that might take place during the primary. But assuming the primary is on the up and up, absolutely. I would say any one of these candidates is going to be fine, significantly better than Tom Tiffany, and they would have my support were they to come out of this primary. And I would hope that that sentiment would be echoed. There we go. I got there. Um, so it's pretty interesting. Maine Progressive says we have literally lost all of our democracy, and I'm being loud about it. We have a threat from both parties. I mean, I agree. I absolutely agree. But I also think that we have a capacity to. The left is rallying the troops, and like I say it all the time, I've created a listener base of people that are fed up with the duopoly. And then new politicians show up from outside the duopoly, and they're like, oh, well, we definitely can't trust those people. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You recognize that Democrats suck. You recognize that Republicans suck. Here comes a guy saying, well, Plattner notwithstanding, because I do believe the stories about him. But here's a person, whether it's Hong, El Sayed, Mamdani, Rahman, Kiros, the litany of names that I don't have memorized yet, Summer Lee in my home state, who I'm looking to get on this program, they're all winning because of people-based movements. The No Kings rally, I'm sure if you're listening to me and you're a leftist, you might kind of view as a waste of time. And I don't view it that way. I see massive organizing efforts being set up regularly in this nation. I just think that they're a bit listless. I think that they're not aimed at actually accomplishing things that are tangible, that could be accomplished, that could be completed in a way that would make our lives better. There are now candidates coming out and meaning business. I did a segment about it on Monday with Mallory McMorrow stepping out of the race in Michigan. The lane for the centrist Democrat cosplaying as a progressive is closed. We're looking for progressives and centrists. Wear who you are on your sleeve and then see what ultimately ends up winning out. And when a centrist goes toe to toe with a leftist in most places, I can predict who's going to win. 10 to 15% of MAGA voters vote for progressives. They will not vote for liberals. Like the pipe dream that we are creating here, nonsense. I see the follower count's a lot higher than it normally is on TikTok. Thank you to all the new listeners here. And if anybody can, throw me a follow as we're trying to grow an independent media sphere here. Check me out on the Tuba U and the Book of Faces as well. Every single subscriber helps push this message out to a larger percentage of people, so I appreciate the help. Tisha says, I've thought our votes don't count as soon as I learned about the Electoral College in high school. I'm hoping the lower elections can make some sort of difference. Um, yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, the only reason liberals don't like the Electoral College is because for like 5 decades they decided to ignore like 30 states. And it's not like Republicans help them, but they feed to their baser instincts and are able to maintain some semblance of a stronghold there, unfortunately. But I do agree with you. The comparison I always used, although I believe um, the show's not even on the air anymore, but I always used to say back when it was a show that I never watched, but I know you people in the Midwest love your reality TV. Back when I worked at that little radio station, every day after Survivor, I'd walk in the office and everybody would be talking about what they saw on Survivor that night. And I'm like, you people all watch Survivor in 2025? What the hell is wrong with you? But you guys love your reality TV, not judging. We all got our things. I'm in my 30s with superheroes and horror movies behind me. Who am I to judge? But I said, if when American Idol was at its peak and the show came out one day and said, we're no longer deciding who wins American Idol by the popular vote, we're going to do the electoral college. And we're going to give every state a certain value, and whichever population of people, or whatever the largest population in that state, that's where all the votes are going to go for who's going to be next American Idol. There would be riots in the fucking streets. And you all know I'm right. Like, there would be an absolute crap show. But yet we accept it in politics, which is kind of wild. What are you saying there, Doug? I am not doing the purity test. I can go to church for that. Politics is raw. I feel that, Doug, but I draw the line at essay, and essay that I think is corroborated and very easily verifiable. Um, but I get your point. I am not a purity politics guy. I actually got in a lengthy debate in Ben After Dark on Monday about whether or not name calling in this environment is acceptable, and I am pro name calling. You're welcome, Canary. It doesn't take a lot of effort. And for the record, if I thought she were lying, I would say it. I don't believe all women. I listen to all women, and based on what I listen to, I think it's very obvious what happened. And I think anybody pretending otherwise is acting in bad faith. That's me, of course. Best reality show is what's happening in Washington right now. The best reality show actually was the Real World Road Rules Challenge back in the mid 2000s, but I also just might have been in my late teens and very easily susceptible to slop. Thank you for being a feminist. That's all right. I weaponize my feminism all the time to tell women when they're blowing it. Baba, what's up, Baba? Ben, do you think the Senate would still be the same if 5 million black and brown voters moved to New Hampshire, Maine? Probably not. And I actually, oh, Baba, I'm glad you brought that up. So Baba is a Somali immigrant, American as apple pie as well, and a fantastic person. He's on my nighttime lives sometimes. And speaking of nighttime lives, I have a gentleman coming on tonight. Doesn't put his real name on socials. It's APTAP is what it's called. APTAP, which stands for All Power to All People. He's a black gentleman in the southern part of Wisconsin who makes me look like a Reaganist. So I am so excited to be talking to him, but we're going to be talking about the progressive movement in America, how it's obviously tied to race in this nation, and what he sees is the most viable path forward. Because he was calling me out during one of my lives last week, and I was kind of yelling back. He's so passionate. And like, that's all anyone ever told me when I was on that little radio station. Is that they're like, Ben, I love your passion. I love your authenticity. And like, when I see him, I'm like, he makes me sound like I don't care about what I'm talking about. So that's going to be on all of my personal pages. Ben After Dark is not on Minocqua stuff. That is just Ben Cominos stuff. So I believe he's going to be joining me through YouTube. I'm not going to chance trying to do the multi-stream with a guest until I can figure out how to do it on my own. So everything's going to be divided for that show, but that'll be available from 7 to 8 p.m. But so to answer your question, Bob, I think it would be absolutely different. I mean, hell, I've said this before. I said it on the because as people know, I'm very anti-identity politics. I think Black History Month is a slap in the face to the Black community. I think we should be learning about Black history year round. And I think the Black history we all learned about George Washington Carver and Martin Luther King and his I Have a Dream speech, and that's about it. And anything else you wanted to figure out, you have to figure out on your own. You go back and study the civil rights movement of the 60s, and you realize, while yes, it obviously was tied to race, like because the Black community were second class citizens in the 60s. But there was absolutely an anti capitalist, pro socialist, pro wealth redistribution movement tied to the civil rights movement, tied to the Black Panthers, to Martin Luther King, to Malcolm X, to Fred Hampton, to so many names that I'm not thinking of right now. And they would be hosting rallies where skinheads and Black people and Asian people and Mexicans and everybody would be in one room talking about a system that is holding them back. And the whites that were in power at the time realized that if they make it just about race, that a bunch of morons will turn their backs on the movement. And here we are 60 years later, still learning that same lesson. And I think anybody who actually studies the history of this country and the history of economics in this country, it is impossible to learn about the civil rights movement without the ties to the economy. Black History Month most certainly doesn't do that any favors. They teach it from an entirely different perspective. A valid one. The stuff they're saying isn't wrong, but I'm saying it's not 1% of the conversation. By the way, Carla, don't think I didn't see the comment that said your dead dad enjoyed Survivor. Maybe he's still watching it, you know? Yvette says facts, Ben. I mean, far be it for me as a white, well, technically a Mediterranean, but I mean, look at me, you know? I'd get a loan if I went into a bank. They wouldn't question whether or not I was going to pay at the bank just because I walked in. I know what you guys go through. I'm so thankful for the friends that I made living in the city for giving me the insight that I have as I form into a fully adult man as time goes on. Yeah, you'll pass. Exactly. Exactly. Oh, oh, I bet he's up to date on his credit payments. I'd love to get into that with you, Bob. I can't today just because the morning show has a bit of a different vibe than the night show, but I'd love to get into it. And again, I can't stress enough. Let me further describe just so I don't seem like a jackass. And I don't think you think I'm a jackass, but just to be sure, um, I had to learn that Black women helped us get to the moon by watching the movie Hidden Figures. I had to learn about what took place in Tulsa back in 1921 with the violence on Black Wall Street because of the opening scene to The Watchmen, one of the episodes of The Watchmen on the HBO television series. How the hell did I go through kindergarten and 12 grades of high school where an entire month was shared, was talked about the history of a population of people, and one of the biggest achievements in America and one of the worst things I've ever heard about happening in America never made it into my curriculum in 12 years. And I'm so thankful I know this now. I'm blanking. Leslie Jones, the comedian from SNL. She did a bit one day on the Weekend Update where she starts rattling off all of the different achievements of Black people throughout America's history. I didn't know any of them. I didn't know any of them. And it's just like, what is the like? It's like, here is the exact curriculum. Here's exactly how we're going to teach it. And again, I was in school in like the pre-internet days or the very, very early internet days. So like I just went about my business not knowing anything. And like we should just be learning about it all the time. Like we shouldn't be like, here's the month that we're going to dedicate to this, and we're only going to dedicate it to 0.75% of what's going on, and we're going to ignore everything else that was happening. I know about Benjamin Banneker because and he actually was involved in the banking system, but only because I had to do a book report on him. And I was the only one that did it. And I guarantee you, A large percentage of the people watching this right now would have to look up who Benjamin Banneker is after this wraps up because they don't know who he is. Somebody right now, without looking it up, tell me who he is. I'll wait. Yeah, Baba says February is like the fast food of Black history. Exactly. I find it now that I know what I know, I find it insulting. I find the entire thing insulting. Born and raised said his eyes were open watching Roots. And by the way, born and raised, I saw that video you made pushing people to my channel. That was so thoughtful. You're an incredibly nice human being, and I love your content. So thank you very much for doing that. Everybody in my chat who hasn't, go find Born and Raised in Brooklyn, New York, and give him a follow. Uh, Lorelei says it's almost like the US was built on racism and patriarchy. That might be identity politics. No, it absolutely is. And then Democrats weaponize it, is where you get lost. Um, as I often state, Lloyd Austin was the first black defense secretary in American history. That's great. He also used to be on the board of Raytheon. He's a piece of trash. I would rather have a straight white man that hates war rather than a black guy who's going to do the same thing as all the white men that came before him. And saying that progress was made because a black man can be just as much of a war criminal as a white guy, to me, isn't the kind of progress that I think this nation should be making. Baba says you want the organic gourmet versions. Some people don't have the bandwidth. Oh, there would be riots in school board meetings if I think real Black history were taught, because we see what happens when you talk about the native population or the Black population. You probably just get the books banned at that point. This is too woke. Um, Tom says, I love a good history movie. I do not know everything. Alex says, not only bomb the bill. Wait. Kids aren't taught about the burning of Tulsa or how the government bombed an American block in Philadelphia. Exactly. And Alex said, not only bombed the building, but attempted to drown a dozen children inside. Jesus. Yeah, they block all that stuff out of it. They don't teach you about the labor movements in America. They don't tell you about the violence that had to ensue for the everyone stood outside with their picket signs, and eventually the billionaires were like, "Okay, we're gonna give you a fair shake at life now." Like, no, those rights had to be won. And I actually got an in-depth conversation because, as per Violet and Jen's suggestion, I have been engaging with like-minded accounts on TikTok quite a bit. And we were going back and forth about how a lot of those concessions, even that were made in the height of Union strength, were more so just to placate everybody at a time of rising tensions. And as soon as those tensions began to fizzle out, they started slowly rolling back, and that's why you kind of feel this slow march back into the Gilded Age that we're going through now, because they gave us plebeians what we were looking for. Now we got to bring it back in. Can't let the common folk feel like they're getting too much here, um, because then they might even expect more. Which is wild that that's the way that they think, but it is. It's why I'll never be a CEO. Although, I mean, I guess technically I am going to become the CEO of whatever I call this media company. Deanne says some of the people being considered to replace Plattner were previously running for governor or representative. They lost their primaries. Okay, good to know. Jamie says, come August 12th, the winner is my candidate. I forgot we were even talking about that. I don't know how I got on this. This was not planned for today. Um, but I appreciate this conversation nevertheless. I think it's an important one to have. And I'm just like the wokest fucking white dude that's like, look at all these things that if I just read more as a kid, I probably would have known, but didn't. And now that I know them, I'm pissed I didn't know them faster. And I think everybody should know them. Like, and then you just go off on that rant. Um, Baba says he works in aviation and that place showed Hidden Figures 2 years ago. But like, why the fuck? Like, there's a moon landing curriculum and a Black History Month curriculum, and neither one of those curriculums found a way to work that into the conversation. There was no time to maybe bop that into the conversation real quick. Like, now that you know, it's almost embarrassing. And then to see 30% of the country stand up and say, we're not teaching white people stuff enough. Like, oh, you're embarrassing. Miss J says exactly how I feel catching up with all of you. No, I get it. And like that's why I do the show the way that I do it. I used to joke when I first started doing the show, and realistically, it still is that way today. There was a girl that worked up at the front desk named Lena, and like I would always go up to the front and vent my political frustration because I didn't want the other people in the office to hear my politics because I thought it would make them mad. I can tell you, as of 2 weeks ago, I was right. Um, but I would go up there and I would say, basically every night I do a book report, and every morning I come to work and I tell everybody what I learned, and I hope that I give some people a good idea of what I learned that day. I see you, Chris. Give me a couple minutes to wrap up my thoughts here, and we're gonna bring you up. I appreciate you joining us. But so that's kind of my attitude towards that. Again, we are so far off the terrain at this point. I don't know how we got here, but I'm always happy to have this conversation with people that want to have it. I do want to get into, if you didn't see my hype up video this morning on the Book of Faces and the Gram of Instances, we have another guest, another candidate running for office here. As I told you guys, I intend to be the one-stop shop for all of the candidates running in Wisconsin that you'll be interested in hearing in. The 7th District of Wisconsin is where, if you've been on my Tube of You page before, you could see me giving a speech to a room of delegates in there. That is Tom Tiffany's district. He no longer can run, obviously, because he is running for governor in this state, so he has to vacate his seat. There is no incumbent, and it is up for grabs with a couple of Republicans running there as well as Democrats, and we're going to see how many of them that we can get on this show to talk about today. And one person that I met while speaking to the delegates in the 7th District was Chris Armstrong, who reached out to me yesterday and was like, let's get this rolling. I was like, yeah, we'll get you on tomorrow if you're up for it. And he agreed. And so without further ado, I see you up there and running. I'm going to bring you up on stage. For the people listening on TikTok, this is going to be available on YouTube and Facebook right now. I don't know, because this is the first time I'm doing a guest with all of it streaming on the same computer. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, and I apologize because we do have a big listener base. Search my name on YouTube, Ben Cominos, if you can't hear it, and check it out, or you can check out the interview later on. All of them are going to be archived on my channel, so go ahead and check that out. Without further ado, Chris Armstrong, I'm bringing you up. Brace for impact here. Here we go. There he is. How are you today?
Doing very well, Ben. Can you hear me all right?
I can. Yeah, you sound great to me. In TikTok chat, let me know if you can hear anything. Um, and that way I know for future reference how this is going. How is your morning going today?
Oh, not too bad. It's a little cooler over here in St. Croix County. Had a little bit of rain. It's 74, 94% humidity with more storms on the way.
Huh. Yeah, no, it is summer in Wisconsin, right? I feel like we see the clouds just as much as we see the rain here. So we have a lot to get into here, so we may as well jump into it. And I always like to start with the generic and then dive a little deeper with you guys. So maybe a little bit about your history. Have you run for office before? And again, this is Congressional District 7.
Correct.
Have you run in the area? And what led you to decide to try and challenge the seat this time around?
Sure, sure. No, I have never held any political office of any sort. So this is my first time running a campaign. Certainly an interesting experience. Having never done anything like this, so learning a lot. But fortunately, I've got the great support of a campaign team and a lot of volunteers across the district. My voyage started last year, actually in February 2025. So, like many, I was watching the news, doing the doom scrolling. When Trump was inaugurated, the flurry of unconstitutional, illegal executive orders were issued, and then Elon got into Doge and started taking a sledgehammer to the federal government. And I was just apoplectic about what was going on and that nobody was doing anything. I'm like, what the frick is going on? I mean, I didn't expect much from the Republicans, but I was surely disappointed by the Democrats. Despite being in the minority, I was like, we got to do something. So I decided that I was going to take matters into my own hands. So I started, made up a protest sign. Went down to the busiest intersection here in New Richmond. It's about 10,000 people here in St. Croix County at rush hour, all by myself. And I started protesting because I had to get out of the house and do something. Otherwise, I was going to break something or pull what was the little hair that's left on the top of my head.
Yeah.
So, I did that a couple, 3-4 times. Got pretty positive feedback. Of course, there's always the naysayers who throw shade at it and whatnot. Then decided with the upcoming election of Susan Crawford on April 1st, 2025, that I just couldn't sit on my butt and hope it would all work out, because that's kind of what I did, for all elections, particularly 2024. And I just couldn't leave anything for chance. So I got, involved in the Democrat Party here in St. Croix County to, see what I could do to try to make a difference. Attended a meeting, which was all about, getting the vote out and canvassing and organizing. But at the end, they said, does anyone have anything to say? And I got up and kind of gave a fire and brimstone, speech of what the frick is going on? Why aren't we doing anything? And an older couple came up to me afterwards and said, hey, we really liked what you had to say, but we want to know, are you Chris Armstrong that we think we know? And I'm like, I don't know. Who are you guys? It was my second grade elementary teacher.
Huh.
And her husband, who was the Phi Ed teacher in elementary school. And they said, again, really liked what you had to say. We're going to the Polk County meeting, which is in 2 days. We think you should come up to that. And so I did. And kind of the same series of events unfolded with me again, expressing my concern at the end of the meeting. And a young guy came up to me afterwards and said, hey, have you ever thought about running for Congress? And I'm like, well, not really, but now that you mention it, yeah, maybe that's something we should think about doing. And so as things unfolded, as you may know, Susan Crawford was victorious, 10-point swing here in Wisconsin. That was pretty positive outlook. There was a hands-off protest by Indivisible and other organizers on the following Saturday, April 5th. And I was like, maybe we could have one of those events here in Richmond. So I put up an event on April 2nd. Wednesday after the election, said, hey, come down to the corner. That's Highway 64 and 65. And then by the time Saturday arrived, 90 plus people had signed up. And then when we got there, 250 people showed up. And then that led me to found, with some other local organizers, New Richmond Indivisible. Since then, I've had to, step down from a leadership position in that org just because, conflict of interest between that and
Sure.
Political campaign. And a big part of this was in some ways driven by, my grandson. So I'm a grandfather for the first time. He's now 18 months old. And I just think about, a time 10 plus years from now, when we're having a talk, he's a little better, oriented about what's going on in the world. And he's like, gee, Grandpa, I heard things were pretty crazy back when I was born. What did you do? And I want to be able to look him in the eye and said, I did everything I possibly could to try to make this a better place for you and your family and our community.
Sure. I get that. That's a hell of a story. I see the TikTok chat's impressed by what they're hearing a lot there. I mean, plenty of issues to get into here. And I always like to start on the healthcare front. I oftentimes use the example back in 24, I interviewed dozens of candidates, and every single time I started with healthcare, and every single time they didn't really have a kind of solution that sufficed. So now it's only gotten worse. We've lost the Obamacare subsidies. I myself just had healthcare taken away from me after having found out I'm no longer working at the radio station, because in this great country, you need to be working in order to have access to healthcare. That is not your belief. You say healthcare doesn't have to be earned. What does that mean? What does the future of healthcare look like if you were to come away victorious?
Sure, sure. Well, I'm a small business owner, so I run my own IT business for the past 30 plus years. And one of the things that was really important to me as a business owner is providing the best healthcare I possibly could find for my employees and their families. So I offered basically, premier healthcare programs for my employees and all of their spouse and children, 100% employer paid, because I wanted to make sure that, when they were working for me, I had their full attention as best as that was possible. Namely, I didn't want them worrying about what's going to happen when something happens to me, my spouse, my kids. And I just think it was a moral right decision to make. Now, it may not have been the best business decision to make, because let me tell you, it was not cheap. But
yeah,
it was, again, as an IT consulting and service company, the employees are intellectual property and all that kind of stuff. That is our asset. Computers, they're worth nothing, right? As soon as you buy them. So, a lot of, folks on the other side think that, you have to work in order to get healthcare. And I think that's completely backwards. You have to be healthy physically and mentally in order to work. Again, if you're in that phase of life where you can and want to work, and you're, not retired, disabled, otherwise incapacitated. But, it really puts a huge burden, I think, on workers, where they have to be concerned about, gee, if I want to do any, change in my employment for whatever reason, a lot of them are, hesitate and don't do it because they're going to lose their insurance. And so, in my opinion, here in the United States, we're the wealthiest country in this, in the history of all civilizations on this planet Earth. We do not have a money problem. We have a prioritization and allocation problem. So there is no doubt that we can afford this. And of course, as you probably know, Ben, Americans pay the most for healthcare, but have pretty poor outcomes compared to other, developed countries. So, Medicare for all, I'll admit, I am not a healthcare policy, expert. My expertise is in what we call enterprise architecture and systems engineering. Of course, I've got pet interests in things related to science. I graduated with a degree in astrophysics, back in 1989. But, Medicare for all, at face value sounds like a good idea, whether it's that, another program. But the whole point is, there is just no freaking excuse that the United States cannot offer good health care to everybody. It is absolutely essential. It's just a matter of will that we haven't been able to achieve that.
I always think it offers a nice insight when a business owner talks that way, because I think a lot of times people talk about healthcare, they always kind of use that as a cudgel and be like, well, you don't know what it's like to run a business. You don't know about the cost of it. You don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And I think that puts you in a unique position to be able to talk to it. You mentioned it's not a money problem, it's an allocation problem. But on your platform as well, and I'm not. It sounds like I'm about to pivot to something negative. I absolutely agree with this. But on your website, it says tax the rich and larger corporations more. So it does feel as though maybe you think there is a bit of a size of the revenue pot as well.
We definitely are. Revenue is definitely an opportunity for improvement. So countless administrations, particularly Republicans, but also Democrats, the tax rate is just too damn low. I mean, there are people that are just earning extraordinary amounts of wealth, and of course, it's terribly ironic, right? That when you're doing actual work, whether it's physical work, on a work site, service work like I do, which is more with my brain and talking and hands on the keyboard, that we pay a higher tax rate for doing real work than capital gains and people that make money off of money. That is completely freaking backwards. So I think that needs to be inverted. Plus, we just need to get back to taxing, the ultra wealthy As the huge horrible bill that was signed, a year ago on July 4th, 2025, was the largest wealth transfer from the lower earners to the highest earners in U.S. history. It is such a freaking scam. These people do not need these tax breaks. They do not trickle down in any possible way that benefits anybody. And I think, particularly with Elon, presumably, an illegal alien who is here illegally, who needs to be deported because of his immigration violations, a trillionaire. We need to tax trillionaires out of existence. It is perverted that there are people that have that much money. They should not be allowed to exist. They could exist as people, but not as trillionaires. And again, just gets to IRS and enforcement. The deal that I think has escaped people's notice recently, but in that bogus settlement, with the DOJ and the IRS, that the Trump family is never going to be audited ever. I mean, that is just the height of corruption. And so, again, IRS ranks have been, have shrunk because of the, illegal firings, the union busting. So it's pretty clear that the current administration is not interested in, having the people pay their fair share. And then there are detractors that say, well, if we do that, these wealth, job creators are going to leave. And I'm like, let me show you the door and I will shut it behind you. Because if these people are not patriotic enough to do their frickin' duty, they do not deserve to be here. So it's good riddance as far as I'm concerned. And what's interesting about it is, I'm sure you've considered it, Ben, when you hear about it, like, they're proposing a wealth tax in California and everybody's threatening we're going to leave California. Well, they're bitching so much because they feel entitled. We deserve these tax breaks, and it's a bunch of bullcrap.
Yeah. Shit. Not gonna get any pushback from me on that. So you make a lot of great points, and just to not beat a dead horse, I mean, just going through a lot of your policies and your positions on a lot of things, just in the world of economics. You're supporting working families, all that jazz. You're talking paid family leave, you're talking child care access, and obviously through the economic means that you and I have just been talking about, that's obviously how you intend to pay for that. To the people on TikTok asking, this is Chris Armstrong. He's running for the 7th Congressional District of Wisconsin. Sorry you don't have a face to put to a name. It is available on YouTube and Facebook. We're working on the multi-stream. We're not there yet. Everything you're saying is good, and I would even argue that a lot of people that voted for Donald Trump would probably agree with a lot of the elements of what you're saying there. Here's what I have learned in my world of talk radio. I have a feeling I'm no longer in the world of talk radio because I had the audacity to say, fuck ICE. And you are running on full-blown abolishment of ICE. No appeasement, no working with them. I'm with you. I also know what the demo of the 7th District is, and I wonder what brought you to this policy. I mean, I think I have an idea, but how do you hope to not necessarily reach across the aisle, but maybe some of the more moderate voters up there who think immigration is an issue, but aren't necessarily in favor of a bunch of masked people running around with weapons either? How are you meeting that spot there?
Oh, well, it's not that difficult. I mean, we'll see how it works out in the end. I mean, a part of my heightened concern about that is, as many may know, here in St. Croix County, we are right next to Minnesota. So it takes me 30 minutes to get to St. Paul, 40 minutes to get to Minneapolis. We're actually considered a part of the Minneapolis-St. Paul media market, which is a tragedy because when the Vikings and the Packers are on at the same time, we show the Vikings game.
Sure.
I'll just tell you a really quick anecdote. So in the height of that, Operation Metro Surge back in, January, I got an unsolicited email through the website from a voter in the North Woods. And he basically said, he kind of threaded the needle, couldn't tell if he was left or right. So he just said, what do you think about President Trump's leadership and how ICE and CBP are executing their mission? And so instead of being my very, bombastic self, again, kind of played it cool a little bit and said, well, President Trump, not a fan of his leadership because there isn't any. As far as ICE and CBP, as they continue to violate people's First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, Eighth, 10th, and 14th Amendment rights. The people that are doing this, that are ICE employees, need to be fully held accountable for their crimes against the American people. And then he emailed me back and he said, that is exactly the answer I wanted to hear. I am a Republican who voted for Trump and I am sick of it. And we need to stand up for the U.S. Constitution. So
wow.
That's the way. So, and that's really the foundation, Ben, of my platform is, it's really easy to focus on, and not to make light of, the challenges that everybody's facing with affordability and health insurance and all that kind of stuff. But that's not the problem. The problem is the lawlessness and the corruption of this government. Nothing is ever going to get better. Today is the worst day of the Trump administration, only to be followed by tomorrow, which will be even worse.
Yeah, and I think your economic policy, I think, is a great way to bridge the gap. You see the statistics, 10% of Trump voters voted for Mamdani in New York. You're seeing right-wingers across Wisconsin now, which is actually where I want to pivot to next with you, come out and say, I'd actually consider voting for a self-described democratic socialist because she is against data centers. She is against surveillance. Your thoughts as we watch these data centers kind of emerge all over our state? We're one of the premier locations for fresh water, fresh bodies of water. Community input is important here, and I think there's a lot of people in a lot of communities that feel like they go, voice their opinion, and they say, okay, thanks for telling us. Anyway, here's your data center. What are your thoughts on the prevalence of this possibly necessary technology, but also very new technology?
Yeah. I mean, of course, I've got an interesting viewpoint to offer, which is I'm an IT.
Sure.
Right? Again, I'm not a technology guy. So in enterprise architecture, there's 4 different levels of the enterprise: business, applications, data, and technology. So data centers down at the technology level. I'm more up at the business, application level. But anyway. The data centers are necessary to because that's what the cloud is, right? But just an interesting perspective. I don't know if you and others have considered this. Is like we're a Microsoft shop, so we use Outlook and Teams and all that kind of stuff. And as you maybe know, you can record Teams meetings, and a lot of people record Teams meetings. And I got to tell you, I could say out of the 1,000 times I recorded a Teams meeting, which is being stored up in the cloud someplace. Passive data storage versus active computing power. But I got to tell you, maybe 2 times. So there's, a lot of wasted storage, in my opinion. I mean, sure, we need storage for photos and all this kind of stuff. Again, data centers, moving from what are called on-prem solutions where people, organization hosted it themselves to the cloud we are so far past that being mainstream. That is the way all organizations, commercial and government.
Sure.
But, the challenge with data centers, particularly being driven by AI, is twofold. As you certainly know, one of the reasons Wisconsin is being targeted is not just because of available land and water, but also because the state legislature, provided a $2 billion, sales tax exemption. Sure. And I am a little bit of an outlier in my field because I'll tell you, when I go to any, professional conference, guess what the number 1 topic is?
What's
AI,
that?
AI. Sure. And I have been in this business for 40 plus years, and I have seen technology trends come and go. And basically, AI is in what we call the hype cycle. It's being built up as the next biggest thing that's going to change the freaking world. And I've been a part of 3, 4, 5, or 6 of these where I've actually been a supporter and a believer. And I've seen this movie before. We are way overbuilding, way overinvesting. So according to McKinsey, a large-scale consulting organization that people might be familiar with, and this was as of last year, 2025, they anticipated by over the next 5 years through 2030, globally, there were going to be up to $9 trillion in both data center improvements and new data center build-outs because of, again, modernizing the cloud infrastructure as well as AI. And I'm like, that is nasty. Seriously, we have $9 trillion in capital someplace. Again, these are the ultra wealthy, the companies, individuals, and we got that kind of cash laying around to make this kind of investment. So, I'm really concerned, again, about the lack of local transparency. Again, sacrificing, electrical rates, water, land use for the benefit of who? So that, tech companies on the East and the West Coast can make a buttload of money. I just don't see how that serves local constituents.
Yeah, and just out of curiosity, so I don't have access to the audio anymore, but there's a Microsoft lawyer. In your experience, do these centers actually provide economic value? Because the Microsoft lawyer went on the record and said, yeah, once they're built, it's really not a lot that we can talk about. What's your perception there?
I mean, I haven't done the deep research myself. I mean, certainly construction is a part of it, but that's transient. I was just reading something about, as you may know, Virginia is the data center capital of the world, mostly because of the federal government, and Amazon's got a big facility there and blah, blah, blah. And they claim that, the Loudoun County got $100 million of revenue, so, is there something in it for local governments? Possibly. But, the lack of transparency, particularly here in Wisconsin, as you may know, where there were like 4 or 5 big developments that were going to be invested in that were subject to NDAs, and so the town and village councils weren't disclosing it, to their residents, and then there's the noise, and it's just like, there's just certain types of infrastructure that could be built in other places where there's less people, less natural resources. For example, in northern Wisconsin in particular, we have incredible forests and water resources. We should not be jeopardizing any of that, with older industries like mining, for example. I mean, they're trying to open up the mining opportunities across the border in the Voyageurs National Park. I mean, it's just, just can't be done. Can't be done. There's just certain places where certain things should not be done because they just don't offer the benefit.
We're speaking with Chris Armstrong. He's running for Congressional District 7, replacing Tom Tiffany's seat as he runs for governor here. Obviously, another concern coming out of those data centers is carbon emissions. And I got to say, it was one of my favorite things reading about, take a similar attitude towards that I do towards renewable energy, is that if we can power society by the sun, every person who pays for energy should want that. If we can get to that point. You say it just makes economic sense. How do we get there?
That's going to be a challenge. But just imagine, what if we manufactured, solar cells in Wisconsin? Again, a lot of supply chain issues around how that would happen. But providing good union, working class jobs that are doing good things for the environment. We got to install those, and both wind, and as both wind and solar are the cheapest, fastest way to get more energy. If anything that this illegal war in Iran has demonstrated, I mean, it is just astounding. For the most part, you say, the federal government and the president, has no direct impact on the price of oil, except when they're stupid enough to frickin' start an unprovoked war illegally that drives up the cost of oil across the entire world. I mean, these guys are freaking idiots, and they need to be removed from office before they do any more damage.
I absolutely can relate to what you're saying there.
And pardon the interruption, Ben, just to make a finer point. As you may know, the Trump administration is paying off energy developers to abandon solar and wind projects, right?
Yes.
Not only is that
big announcement
ludicrous
on the 4th, I believe.
Right? Not only is that ludicrous at face value, I'm sure people have wondered, well, where are they getting the money for that? Who authorized them to do that? Well, of course, this White House does not give a crap about Congress, and apparently Congress doesn't give a crap about it either. But apparently, there is a DOJ fund that can be used for the federal government when they make settlements. But there is no settlement here, just like in the bogus, IRS case. So they are basically illegally taking money from this DOJ fund to tell these energy developers to abandon their development projects. Again, just totally unconstitutional, illegal. And not only is it not, good for our energy policy and all that stuff, it's illegal. It must be stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like common sense, and yet it feels like you always, it's a Sisyphean task to push that boulder up the hill sometimes.
Oh,
But
goodness sakes.
yeah. Staying in the world of conservation, our farmland, obviously very important. I don't need to tell you that we're watching farmers. To be frank, farming bankruptcies were increasing in 2023. They were increasing in 2024. And then the tariffs happened and they have absolutely ballooned in 2025. You've taken a pretty aggressive stance towards the tariffs, and how can you, were you to win, what would be your measures to kind of bail out our farmers that realistically, people say, how can you vote for Trump? And I say, well, it looks like they really don't see any kind of relief regardless of who's in president. It's just, are they going to bleed out or bleed slowly? And that's what they're voting between. How do you
Right.
stop that process?
Well, I mean, my opinion is they're bleeding out right now. Because again,
Yes.
with friends like Trump, who needs enemies, right? I mean, perniciously instituting a tariff regime illegally. I mean, and as you may certainly know, Ben, the basis for a lot of these executive orders is that the Trump administration has declared a national emergency, which is full of crap. Except there is some dimension of truth to it. There is a national emergency, and that is Trump is the president and needs to be, removed from office in, at the soonest possible opportunity. The farmers I know, because again, when I grew up and went to high school, I was, rode the bus, and I swear 75% of the kids on my bus came from dairy farms. I would be surprised if there's more than one of those farms left now, 40 plus years later. But the farmers I know, they do not want subsidies. They want to, raise their cattle, milk their cows, raise their, row crops or their specialty organic crops. Ginseng, is the big issue, just east of here in Marathon County by Wausau. Wisconsin is the the largest producer of ginseng in the world. We produce the most amount of cranberries in the world. I mean, people don't want federal assistance. They just want stability. They want predictability. They want markets. And this president has demonstrated in both his first term and his current term, he does not give a crap about that, because he's destabilizing, the global agricultural markets. All these promises about, China's going to buy this and buy that. I mean, these are. I mean, there's no ink on this. Trade deals take some time to work out through deliberation and whatnot, and compromise and all that. But this government has nothing to offer the farmers. I think many of them that may have voted for Trump are waking up to that. And one of the things that I think we need to be mindful about is it's not easy to admit you were wrong. Okay. I am not asking people to make that confession to me or publicly. And again, particularly talking about, white men specifically, it takes a lot of courage to do that, a lot of freaking guts. And I'm counting on a lot of people looking inside of themselves and going, I gave it a go. I believed. It's just not working out. But the thing is you don't have to make a public pronouncement on TikTok or Facebook or the national news. You don't have to tell your spouse, your kids. But when you're in that voting booth making a decision, you can go, I'm going to do the right thing. It sucks that I was wrong. I'm going to suck it up and do it anyway. And so I'm counting on, farmers and other constituents, voters across the 7th district to have the same epiphany. But I think it's up to us as candidates and media personalities to establish leadership to inform people about this, and allow them to kind of knock some of these things around in their brains a little bit so they can think about it when they end up pulling the voting lever.
Well, I often state, I think in this climate, I think the idea that you would say something and change your mind immediately is an impossible statement. But like I always say, if you turn this show off and you find yourself in the shower or something thinking about a thing you heard and maybe rethinking one thought you had about something, well, that's a step in the right direction.
Right.
It is very interesting.
We've had 16 years of Republican representation in CD7 since Sean Duffy took over in 2010, which is just, again, insane that he's now the Secretary of Transportation. That is freaking, idiocracy,
Well, I'm sure his real world experience,
right.
no pun
Literally
intended.
his real world experience, right? But, one thing I'm hopeful for is, as I'm sure many of your viewers and listeners know, in 2026, Viktor Orban was, thrown out by the voters. It took 16 years. So I'm going with the theory. It takes 16 years for people to figure out they're getting screwed over, and before they decide to take matters into their own hands and make a change. That's what's coming in Wisconsin.
It's interesting. We're just about out of time here, but I always like ending these conversations the same way. There's obviously, we could jump into 10 more topics in another world, but I always like to say, what's one thing that you wish I had asked you about that you would like everybody listening right now across all streams? We're up around 200 people right now. And we'll have plenty more later on this evening. What's something you want all these people to hear while you're talking about this?
Well, I think I've alluded to it, and perhaps not that indirectly earlier, but the first thing I'm going to do when I'm seated in the next Congress in 2027 is, work with my colleagues, potentially on both sides of the aisle, to introduce articles of impeachment against Trump and his cabinet. They have to be removed. I mean, we just cannot be playing this patty cake stuff. And it's based on the rationale. Let's just imagine this scenario. There's a new Congress. Democrats are in the majority in the House, possibly within the Senate. We passed, the world's best bipartisan healthcare package. Would Trump sign it? I don't know. Based on his current behavior, if it doesn't have something to do with restricting voters' rights, he's not interested. But let's say even if he does pass it, then Wisconsin, flips the Senate, Assembly, and we keep the governor house. So we are a true blue state. You know what happens? We have now become Minnesota. And what I mean by that is we are now targets. So the Trump administration will illegally withhold funding from us when he decides that he doesn't like something that we did or something that someone said. So the whole point is, what is the point of passing any new legislation when the current administration breaks the law every single day? So as an enterprise architect and a systems engineer, I try to employ what's called systems thinking. And there's a root cause here. We have to get rid of the criminals and the corruption. We just can't fool ourselves that doing anything else normally legislatively is going to make any difference at all.
We're speaking with Chris Armstrong, 7th Congressional District of Wisconsin, involved in a primary right now. Obviously, get out there and vote August 11th as we inch closer to primary day. Thank you very much for being here and taking a half hour to talk about things. If you can make your way out of the primary here, we'll have you back on for the general election.
Awesome. I appreciate the opportunity, Ben. Thanks so much.
Thank you. You take it easy.
Yep, me too.
Great conversation there. I appreciate what he had to say very much as I just remove him. I always feel bad it says kick from studio. I wish there were a nicer way to say that. I don't feel like I'm kicking anybody. I'm asking him politely to leave. And I saw you looked it up, Jarmani. There are two other people, Fred Clark, Ginger Murray, are also running in the 7th District. I'll be reaching out to them. Chris actually called me. As I mentioned, he was at an event that I was also at back in May, and we met, exchanged contact info, and he called yesterday, and we got him on very quickly. Nataki says he was a good interviewer. Actually, he's a very good interviewee. I'm a good interviewer, is what you meant to say. I'm joking. Who are the experts, RE data centers and the environment? What do you mean by that, Hayes? You mean running or in general, or who are you looking for? C7557 just says, thanks for having Armstrong on. Floyd says, crackpot, good input. Explain why. Just saying TDS every time someone tells you something Donald Trump says and does doesn't make anybody think you're making sense when you talk. Watch this. Farming bankruptcies are up 700% since Donald Trump imposed tariffs. Waka waka, MAGA. That's not Trump derangement syndrome. That's numbers and how time works. So if you're struggling with either one of those, I'm happy to help you out with that, but just not during the show. So if you have actual gripes, I'm here for it. If you just got a bunch of stupid cliches, keep them to yourself, because it doesn't seem like you're really capable of making an articulate argument for why you feel the way you do. Yeah, I think he had a lot of good points. I mean, you guys know how I feel about uh the whole impeachment stuff. I think it's a waste of time. Feel like of all the things, like, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So like I think wasting your time on anything like that is exactly that, a waste of time. Don't worry about it, Jen. You don't need to worry about what people are saying in that chat. I can handle these. Dude, not hurting your feelings at all. I just like, do you have a comment, like an actual fact to push back against anything he said? I literally even said farming bankruptcies increased in 2023 under Joe Biden, under 2024 in Joe Biden, and then skyrocketed in 2025. And your comment was TDS. My feelings aren't hurt. You're not good at making an argument. And the idea that me saying Biden sucked, Trump sucked way worse, here's the numbers, here's the evidence, waka waka, MAGA, you might be in a cult. I don't know what more I can really say to you. So Godspeed. I hope you figure out how basic numbers work at some point. I did not read it, John, my man. I apologize, but I need you to understand this is a full-time gig right now. I can only do what I need to do. I promise you, I want to read it. I have a feeling I'm going to love it. Can someone please send me the link again? I'll get it done today at some point, probably after my evening show, but I will get it in. Yeah, I know the communism comments right around the aisle. Yeah, he did say he wanted to remove Trump, gamer. He said he wants to impeach everybody, which again is deserved, but is never going to happen. So to me, I've always been of the mindset: pass healthcare legislation, pass housing legislation, pass tax legislation, pass cost of living legislation, and make Trump keep saying no. Make him keep saying no, so that that's what Republicans have to run on going forward. Is, well, here's what Democrats are trying to do while you guys are sitting there bitching about Mexicans and voter frogs. Like that, and it's a difference of opinion. I'm not saying the dude's a bad candidate because of that. I'm saying he and I disagree with that kind of stuff. 9.2% inflation is not a snapshot, it has long-term effect. Wonderful, great point. He also was able to get that inflation down under 3% because I don't know if you remember, but Joe Biden inherited a freaking pandemic. The entire world economy shut down. There was no demand for anything. Then the demand shot through the roof. The supply wasn't there, and prices shot through the roof. Compare or couple that with corporate greed and companies charging more than they absolutely had to, and it resulted in a cost of living crisis. Joe Biden proposed legislation to tax oil and gas companies that were gouging us in 2022 when the gasoline prices shot through the roof. And you know who voted against it? Clap along with me, bud. Don't block them. Did you block them, Isabel? Bring them back. Okay, good. You didn't. All right. Every single Republican in the House and Senate voted against that piece of legislation so that you would sit there and bitch about the cost of living on the other side of things. So, again, I ask you, what are you actually banking this on? Because the inflation numbers are going back up again, not because of a pandemic, but because of a dumbass president. And that's not TDS. I am pointing to the things Trump is doing, showing you the cause and effect. And I got to hold your hand like a small child as you get closer and closer to realizing how numbers actually work. But it seems like you only cherry pick when things matter because waka waka, MAGA, there might be something in the Kool-Aid. um Why aren't news reporters responding back more that there is no voter fraud problem? I mean, they do. They've said it 1,000 times. These people just don't want to hear it. Um, uh, there's nothing more I can say. Go look, don't look now, but check out my Facebook page. There's a regular listener who always used to call my show. He'd be like, Ben, both parties suck, blah, 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 blah. I posted a thing shared by WBAY TV that the Wisconsin Supreme Court decided that they're not going to release the voter rules so that the Trump administration can get their grubby little mitts on everything. And the guy goes underneath and says, if you don't have anything to hide, then why does it matter if you show it? We're sitting here in 2026, and he's still bitching about 2020 and doesn't have a single goddamn thing to say about 2024, and I'm supposed to pretend like he's taking it seriously. I mock these people every single day for claiming that voter frogs are all over the place, and unfortunately, they don't change their mind. Floyd's still trying to fight, even though I just de-pantsed him on the numbers. He's going, I know the numbers. I'm sure you do, bud. Are they written in crayon? Woo! All right. Anyway, I missed that. Doing talk radio, there's like some dummies that disagree with you, but like I had a lot of people. We had a good community of people there. Here, it's a little bit more all of us kind of agree on a lot of the same stuff. And I miss the dummies. And it's just nice when some of them find their way into the chat again. I saw we had some bots in the TikTok chat. That's nice. That means we're expanding. Our reach is expanding the further we go here, and I am here for it. You're right, Aaron. So anyway, that's what my yaya used to say that when I was getting angry. She would tell me, put your hands up, and she would say, look at your no, which is Greek for Godfather, and my godfather had passed away. So that meant look up at the sky and put your hands up so that I would calm down. Look at your no. And 35 years later, here we are. I'm sure you did, Floyd. I worked, my dad is the government, so it's a fun action movie, right, Mike? You know what? Don't get me on the movies tangent. This isn't Ben After Dark. Yes, thank you, Jack Bank, and I'm glad you came here as well. Let me check the Book of Faces really quick before I move on, because we got to show everybody some love here. All right, right on. Let's see if there's any dummies in here. Nope. Yeah, I worked in economic development for 38 years, and my best defense is TDS. Use your words. I'll tell you what, I'll do you one better. Let's not even require you to type. That takes a lot of effort. Here you go, dude. Let's have a conversation. Non-combative. You say TDS, you're gone. Let's have an actual conversation about the way things play out. Nobody's going to accuse me of being a partisan. I refuse to be canceled for my beliefs and then be told that I am trying to placate a crowd. Use that link. Punch it in your browser. Hop on the show. Let's talk it out. Let's hear about your home development experience. I await your call. By the way, Trump started bombing Iran again. That's not Trump derangement syndrome. That's a thing that happened. If somebody can get Floyd a paper bag, it seems as though the MOU, the memorandum, there we go, crackpot. Good point. I never considered that. You have changed my mind now. Now all the stats, facts, and data that I've provided over the last 40 years have been null and void. Crackpot is the claim. Waka waka, buddy. I think you might have jumped in the deep end, and I hate to break it to you. I can still stand here. The MOU is no longer a thing anymore. Or at least that's what they're saying. I wonder sometimes, is this the little Rocket Man kind of stuff? I agree, Phil. Ben Sabi. I wonder if it's little Rocket Man rhetoric, because I have learned that a lot of what the Orange Man says surrounding Iran is in the name of manipulating the stock market and not necessarily keeping us informed from from a foreign policy standpoint as to the way things are actually operating. He has said the memorandum of understanding is all but done, but also he's willing to continue it as well. If you don't know what took place, Iran bombed a handful of ships. I believe it was almost like tit for tat, like 80 bombs were dropped by Iran, so 80 bombs were dropped by America. In this ongoing effort to kind of measure one another's, what's, in an ongoing effort to keep our price cost of living ever so high. Apparently, only in the head of people with TDS, though. For people that are paying attention, I love you too, Adam. Thanks for being here. I'm glad you stuck around for the conversation here. Wait, what did Jar Manny say? Oh, you win $1. $1 house bet says he won't. Yeah. Give it 100-to-1 odds. Not scared, just right. Prove it. I'll share another one, bud. Maybe you missed the first one. I'd love for you to prove your point. I don't think you can. There you go. Punch the URL right there into your browser. Come on the show and defend it. We know you can't. You can tell that I know what I'm doing. Trump did the same to my city in Sucumbios, Ecuador. He took out our milk farm. No, I saw that shit, and there was a reason. You guys recently discovered a rare earth mineral deposit in your nation, did you not? And you were talking about not doing some kind of bullshit happened that, like, in no way merits our authoritarian dad president. Yeah, okay, I thought so. I don't remember the specifics, but I remember reporting on it like a year ago, because everywhere, even Iran in March of 2025 found a lithium deposit on their soil that accounts for 10% of all the lithium that we know of on the planet. And then 3 months later, we started the bombing campaign in June of 2025, and we said it was in the name of nuclear capabilities. Anytime you see an American conflict, Google access to rare earth minerals. This one actually pisses off the liberals in my audience all the time, but massive deposits. Trump was literally talking about it this morning. Now it's common knowledge. I was talking this way in March of 2022. The Donbass region is one of the wealthiest land deposits on the planet in terms of rare earth minerals. And so when Biden was in office, Zelensky and Putin were discussing negotiations for what they were going to do with that land. Biden's Secretary of State and Boris Johnson, the former prime minister, who is essentially the MAGA version of in Britain, who essentially ushered in Brexit, show up, speak to Zelensky, and they say, "No, dog, we got you. Do not do that deal with Russia. We will defend the land," because we wanted to make sure that we had access to all the stuff and not Russia, who was inevitably going to mine it and sell it to China. Ecuador is going the same way. I am so sad. I'm so sorry, Echeverry. He said it took out 4 dogs in our valley. Oh my God, this administration fucking blows. Oh my God, I'm sorry, man. I don't have words. Like, I hope I can tell you understand because you're here, but I hope you know most American people are not in favor of this. And yes, liberals know how, or Democrats know how to talk to liberals and talk them into bombing campaigns the same way conservatives can just scare people like Floyd with the word Muslim or Mexican and get them to be in favor of bombing campaigns. But I hope you recognize that most of us don't stand for what this government does. Like, that's the kind of shit. That's why I post shit like it feels weird pulling for America when they're playing Bosnia in the World Cup. Because I'm like, boy, like, I know what we did to Bosnia in the 90s, and like, we deserve to lose this match, just statistically speaking. And like, if you have a basic capacity for empathy and deductive reasoning, you should be able to like understand where most people come from on that. Yeah, Floyd, if you're not going to click the link, I'm done responding to your comments. You can either discuss with me or you can yell at the cloud and everybody else will just assume I was right because you were too scared to come on here and make a point. Um, yeah, we know you'll rebuild. It just sucks that it had to happen. You just turned down getting interviewed by a Boston news station? What the hell, Jen? Tisha says, can everyone just have their own opinions in here? We are supposed to be seeing different angles. We don't have to agree and we don't have to attack each other. You would think, why try then? You know, you aren't going to change them, so maybe you just change the conversation or just bring your opinion and leave it. TDS is a thought stopping cliche. It goes nowhere. No, I agree. That's where it gets frustrating is like I believe everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but you have to be able to back up your opinion with facts. And if you can't back up your opinion with facts and would rather back it up with platitudes, nonsense, and name calling, like I do name calling, but interspersed with evidence that informs my beliefs. Um, and if you can't bring it that way, then, and you just want a name call, well, unfortunately, like I always tell you guys, I'm like 10% Trump. It's the absolute worst 10% of me, but Trump is in me. And like it comes out from time to time. Like every once in a while, I'm like, that was kind of funny. But he's a piece of shit. And like I know this about him, but when people tick me off, like it's easy to do. And now the comments are coming much more steadily than they used to. Trump is in me. Clip that. He's in me. There's a little Trump in all of us, you know? Just most of us do a better job of suppressing it. Oh no, you guys can all comment. I just meant don't ban people. I don't want every Republican who comes in here talking crap to get blood because I don't want this to be an echo chamber. But at the same time, you have to be able. Remember Dale? Dale would call in and make shit up. I would just mock him. We'd all laugh and then we'd have a fun time. Like that's the kind of environment I want in the chat going forward. Like I would love for that to be the case. I enjoy that there's a lot of like-minded people here. I don't want to say that I don't like that, but I would love if some MAGAs could come in here and explain to me why all the things I'm saying that are obviously right are wrong. Um, yeah, I'm not going to say that out loud, Brambo, but you're not wrong. By the way, I saw Violet talking about putting a shock collar on me, and I don't want to know what you women are talking about in that chat. I saw that a while ago, right before the interview started, and I had to do the entire interview with that in my head. I was just picturing you shocking me while I'm doing the freaking live the whole time. But yeah, Spider-Man Action Heroes backdrop. Again, all ad hominem. I like comic book movies and horror movies. That's Jason Voorhees right there. And I like stop animation as well as all the music in The Nightmare Before Christmas. I like Bernie Sanders. I like Ben Cominos. I like Jesus, you know? I like a lot of things. So, still haven't actually proved me wrong in any way. If you give a galaxy to Ben. Isn't that like $400 or something like that? Please, like I mean, like I would take it, but like let's be on. Um, we have to be careful of the seduction of the echo chamber. Oh, absolutely. I never got into media for an echo chamber. And again, the only reason liberals like me now is because liberals do not control anything. In a lot of ways, the Wisconsin Democrats' worst nightmare is winning a Brambo. I think it's funny that I have it right next to my bauble of me. I think that fits. Um, if Democrats take control of the trifecta in Wisconsin and don't get positive legislation across the finish line, this is going to be a scathing show. There's going to be a lot of liberals that are like, Ben, calm down. You remember how bad it was under Trump? And I'm like, yes, that's not an excuse for liberals sucking. I refuse to accept that as an excuse for liberals sucking. And that time will come. Republicans avoided my ire for the first 6 months I was on the air on the national scene because the Democrats had the House, the Senate, and the presidency. So when things weren't getting done, I never blamed MAGA. Now MAGA controls everything. Everything's getting exponentially worse to anybody that understands that 7 is higher than 6, which is higher than 5. And I'm doing a show that responds to that. So, like, the show is echo chamber proof, but I feel like the audience shifts forward and backward. What's funny is I was never called a partisan when I was hammering Democrats. It's weird. It's almost like MAGA is comprised of a bunch of babies that hates hearing the truth. Why are you attacking a show you chose to listen to? That's a good question. But don't now you're asking for logic from a MAGA, and I think you may be terribly disappointed by that decision, Tisha. But I appreciate your moxie, nevertheless. Okay, but in any event, I at least wanted to touch on the Iran thing a little bit because I have a feeling it's more stock manipulation, and I kind of wanted to put everybody's minds at ease a little bit regarding that because I feel like this is just episode 567 of We Won the War that I started because I'm Israel's little slave, or our allies' little slave, excuse me. My name's Donald Trump, and I approve this message. I think we're gonna have to put a bow in it there, though. Again, at the during Ben After Dark today, I'd highly recommend checking it out. I'm going to have a TikToker on who is I said he's so far left he makes me look like a Reaganist. And he and I got into it a little bit during the live in a good way because he actually is educated and can back up his points. And he and I were going back and forth, and he essentially was saying the DSA doesn't go far enough and that we shouldn't be allowing this two-party system, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm sorry. So are you suggesting that we just do nothing and allow things to continue? Like, I think going further left than what the Democratic Party is probably a better move, given what we see take place in nations all around the world and how America worked for the better part of half a century prior to St. Reagan. And he was like, no, I'm not saying do nothing. I said, I'll tell you what, let's have this conversation for real. And it's not going to be combative in any way. It's going to be a good conversation. I love the dude's content. Very passionate. Like every video he does is like 5 minutes long, and he like really has his shit in order. And I think you guys will like it quite a bit. So that's from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time. Of course, on the tube of you, if you missed any of this show, we had Chris Armstrong on, who is running the 7th Congressional District. We talked a little bit more about the DNC trying to replace Plattner with a centrist versus what Plattner's trying to leverage to kind of make things work the way that he wanted to see. And I talked about other stuff that I already forget because I write nothing down and just internalize it for 4 hours every morning now, which is exactly as stressful as you think it is. But I feel like we're really not missing a step. This felt more like outside the box than anything we did before. The guy's name, Fags, I don't know his real name, but the account name is APTAP, APTAP. It stands for All Power to All People. I find the guy fascinating. I reached out a long time ago to have him on because I genuinely love his content, even though, like I said, I think he's a little further out than even I am. But definitely looking forward to that conversation. That's 7 to 8. Tomorrow on Outside the Box, we're going to have Malia on again, and she's going to become a regular. If you didn't get a chance to see her, she is available on last Thursday's show, which is up on my Tube of You page. Go subscribe, please. She was on with Carrie, who is an anti-flock specialist. Malia hosts the last 24 hours, which is another TikTok stream or a social media stream, rather, across a number of platforms. I'll be sharing some links for her content later on in the evening today. She's going to be on every Thursday, and we're going to be jumping into, she has experience in counterterrorism. She worked in the Air Force for a number of years. Data collection, data surveillance, all those type of things. We're going to be talking about the last week in politics, a number of different stories that I'm looking forward to jumping into with her, which is going to be very fun, I think, for all of us involved. She's a great guest. You as well, Phil. And we have a guest Friday as well, but I'll talk more about that later. The show is getting popular. Oh, and I can't wait to tell my TikTok regulars, Ben After Dark is canceled on Thursday, but for awesome reasons. But I'll tell you guys more about that during the After Dark tonight. I'm going to get out of here. Subscribe to my stuff. I have link trees in my bio on the Tube of You and the Book of Faces. Click the link tree. It's super straightforward, and you'll just see like 10 different places to go. You can just click subscribe on every single one of them. And at the top, there is a Venmo for anybody who appreciates what I'm doing here. If you want to throw me a couple bucks, support an independent creator, that would absolutely be awesome. I actually reached enough subscribers on the Tube of You that I can create super fans. And if you're comfortable with it, I'm going to allow anybody who wants to chip in a $5 a month fee just to kind of support the show on YouTube. That should be up and running by Monday. So if you're interested in doing so, are into what I'm doing, and have a capacity to help, as I am well aware we are in a cost of living crisis, I would genuinely appreciate it. And if not, just your likes and subscribes are all I really need to do what I need to do. So you guys are great. Thank you very much, Yvette. I appreciate you. Thank you, everybody who's saying some nice things here. We're going to get out of here for the day, but check me out later tonight. App Tap and Ben Cominos talking politics. Have a lovely evening, or lovely day, everybody.